We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Vav and Beis in Meseches Pesachim. This is Pesachim Daf 36b. The Brisa here is continuing the position of Rabbi Akiva. Otzi chitanu sa'orin. Should I even say that we should exclude wheat and barley, that you should not be allowed to make matzah out of meat and barley, sheyesh b'minon bikurim, because we should say since wheat and barley, that is part of the species, that counts as a min of bikurim. So we just said before, Rabbi Akiva compares matzah to maror. Just like maror, none of the species of maror are part of bikurim. So too, maybe when it comes to the mitzvah of matzah, you can't use wheat and barley because they're part of the mitzvah of bikurim. So for that, Rabbi Akiva says, Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, matzos, matzos, riba. It says the word matzos means to include, meaning even if it's wheat or barley, it's going to be included. Gemara says, matzos, matzos, riba, afilu, bikurim, nami. Okay, if you have an inclusion, why don't we also include bikurim? Why does he use this comparison between matzah and maror to say that you can't be yotzei the mitzvah of matzah from bikurim? We should use this inclusion of matzos. So to that, the Gemara says, Hadar Bei Rabbi Akiva, you're right. Rabbi Akiva actually retracted. He does not learn out bikurim from the comparison between matzah and maror. Rather, he learns out to exclude bikurim from b'chol moshvosechem, just other Tana in the Brisa. He does not learn it out again from the comparison between matzah and maror. How do we know that? The Tanya, because we learned in a Brisa, Yachol yotza adam yedei chovasu b'bikurim. This Brisa says again, I might have thought somebody can be yotzei the mitzvah of matzah with bikurim. Talmud Lomar b'chol moshvosechem. The pasuk says b'chol moshvosechem tochlu matzos. You have to eat matzahs in all of your areas where you live. Matzah hanacheles b'chol moshavos. Yatsu bikurim sheina necholin b'chol moshavos ela b'Yerushalayim. Matzah has to be able to be eaten everywhere. That excludes bikurim, which cannot be eaten everywhere. It can only be eaten in Yerushalayim. Yachol shani motzi af meiser sheni. Brisa says, maybe I'll think even to exclude Meiser Sheni. Talmud Lomer, Matzos, Matzos, Riba. Again, there it says the pasuk, it says Matzos comes to include Meiser Sheni is okay. Gemara says Umari. So now why do you say that you should include Meiser Sheni? Umari, so Rabos Meiser Sheni, Lahotzi Bikurim. Why do you say that you include Meiser Sheni and exclude Bikurim? Why not the opposite? Marbani. So the Gemara answers, Marbani Meiser Sheni. The Brisa answers, you know why we include Meiser Sheni? Sheyesh lo heter b'chol moshavos k'Rebbe Elazar. Because Rebbe Elazar says there is a possibility of eating Meiser Sheni everywhere. Umotzi ani bikurim, but I exclude bikurim she'ein lahen heter b'chol moshavos. Bikurim, there's no possibility of eating it everywhere. You always have to eat it only in Yerushalayim. Damer Rebbe Elazar, because Rebbe Elazar says, Minayin l'maiser sheni shenitma. How do you know if you have maiser sheni that becomes tameh? Shepodin oso afilu b'Yerushalayim. You're allowed to redeem it even in Yerushalayim, and you can eat it anywhere. So that's what we're saying. Maiser sheni, you have a possibility. If it becomes tameh, you can eat it anywhere. How do I know that? Talmud Lomer, because the pasuk says, Ki lo suchal se'eso. It says that you redeem maiser sheni because you can't carry it all the way to Yerushalayim. But he darshans ve'ein se'es el achila. Really, se'es refers to any situation where you can't eat the meiser sheni. So, for example, if it would become tameh, that would be another scenario. You can't eat it, and you'd be allowed to redeem it, and then you could go and have it anywhere. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, va'yisa masos meis panav. This is a pasuk by Yosef, and it uses the same kind of language to talk about the food that they were eating. So too over here, kilo suchal se'eso means you can't eat it because it's tameh. Rashi over here says, first of all, Kerebi Eliezer, nitma, that if it becomes tameh, podeno sova ochlan sova chamakom. Then at that point, when it becomes tameh, you can redeem it and you can eat it anywhere. Hilkach, therefore, kilo nitma nami v'lo nifta nafik be. Even if it wasn't tameh, you didn't redeem it. It's okay to be yotzei the mitzvah of matzah. And again, se'eso kishalo suchal la'ochla. If you're not able to eat it, could go in zesh and nitma, like in this case where the meiser sheni became tameh, v'nasata b'kesef. Then you can redeem it with money. So therefore, since in theory, again, it could be eaten anywhere, therefore meiser sheni is okay to use for matzah, but it is not okay to use bikurim, which has to be eaten in Yerushalayim. And the Gemara now concludes its proof. Man shamat domer b'meiser sheni nafik be. Who's the one that said earlier in the previous brisa that meiser sheni is okay for matzah? Rabbi Akiva. That's Rabbi Akiva. And in this brisa, what is the Tana who we're now saying is Rabbi Akiva? Where does he exclude bikurim from? He excludes it from the pasuk of b'chol moshvosechem shma mina hadar be. You see, he retracted from the source of the comparison of matzah and maror, and instead he's using the same source we used before, the source of b'chol moshvosechem. Gemara now says, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, but 1 second. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, tepuk leimi lechem oni. Why not have a different source that bikurim is a problem? Lechem oni, misha nechol ba'oni yotza zeh she'ein nechol ela b'simcha. Bikurim has to be eaten b'simcha. It cannot be eaten when somebody's an onein. We used that exclusion before for Meiser Sheni. Let's use that exclusion here for bikurim. Cannot be eaten ba'aninus. When the person just lost a relative, again, before the relative was buried, he's called an onein. So if you're not allowed to eat it in that situation, it can't be used for matzah. That should be the source that bikurim is not good. Matzah bikurim is not good for the mitzvah matzah. So to that, the Gemara answers, Savar like Rabbi Shimon. No, he holds like Rabbi Shimon, the Tanya, because we learned in a Brisa, bikurim asurim la'onen. According to the Tanakama, bikurim is also for an onen. Rabbi Shimon matter, but Rabbi Shimon says it's fine, and onen is allowed to eat bikurim. My time of the Rabbanan, what's the reason of the Rabbanan? Because the pasuk says, Lo sucha lecho b'sharecho v'yamar mar trumas yodcha elo bikurim. There's a pasuk includes a whole bunch of things. One of the items listed in the pasuk of Lo sucha lecho is trumas yodcha, is bikurim. You can't eat it outside of Yerushalayim. And another thing is meiser. The iskish bikurim l'meiser. So you see in this pasuk a comparison between bikurim and meiser sheni. Ma meiser aser la'onen, just like an onen cannot eat meiser sheni. Af bikurim aser la'onen. So too, according to the Rabbanon, the bikurim cannot be eaten by an onen. But the Gemara continues to ask for Rabbi Shimon, but according to Rabbi Shimon, nihi dehekesh lesle. Granted that he doesn't hold of the comparison between bikurim and meiser sheni, simcha mia michtav ksiva behu. It still says the word simcha by bikurim. Tichsiv, because the pasuk says v'samachta b'chol hatov. You should be happy with all of the good you have received. So if you have to be happy when you eat bikurim, an onen should not be allowed to eat bikurim. So to that, the Gemara answers, Ahulis van simchahu da'asa. That pasuk of v'samachta means to say that bikurim, you only read the parsha bikurim at a time of simcha. Tetzanan, we learned in a Mishnah, me'atzeres v'yadachag, from Shavuos until Sukkot, Mevi v'koreh, you can bring the bikurim and you can read the paragraph that you read along with the bikurim. However, me'achag v'yad Chanukah, from Sukkot until Chanukah, maybe the person can still bring bikurim. However, ve'eno koreh, he cannot read the paragraph, and Rashi explains, me'achag v'yad Chanukah eino zman simcha. That's not a time of simcha, ve'eno koreh. Therefore, you're not allowed to read the paragraph, and then umechanukah ve'elach eino zman hava. Already from Chanukah and onward, you don't bring the bikurim anymore. In any case, that's what he does with v'samachta b'chol hatov. So therefore, still, according to Rabbi Shimon, an onen is allowed to eat from the bikurim. And the Gemara continues with a brisa. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a brisa, lechem oni. Pasuk says lechem oni. Prat lecholet v'la'ashisha. This excludes matzah that is boiled right after it's baked. That was considered a delicacy. That's not lechem oni. Ashisha is like a large cake of matzah. Yachol lo yatzad midei chovaso ela b'pas hajra. Now, I might think that a person can only be yotze his obligation of matzah with coarse bread. Maybe it has to go that far. Talmud lomer matzos riba comes to include any kind of matzos. Ve'afilu kematzos shel Shlomo, even like the matzah of Shlomo HaMelech, which was nice, fine flour, that is okay. It can't be choled and ashisha, but it can be like the matzos of Shlomo. Imkain ma Talmud lomer lechamoni. So if so, why does it say lechamoni? Again, prat lecholut ula ashisha, to exclude if it's boiled after it's baked, to exclude if it's like a large cake. Those are not going to be good to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. So now how do you know the word ashisha is like something important, like a delicacy? Because the pasuk says, this is talking about David HaMelech when they were celebrating the Aron returning to its proper place. They distributed to all of Klal Yisrael, so all these various delicacies, and one of them being ashisha, so you see that's a delicacy. V'yomer Rav Chanan bar Abba says, eshbor, what does it mean, eshbor? It is echad mishisha bepar, it means 1/6 of a cow, that's the delicacy. Ashisha, what does it mean, ashisha? Echad mishisha be'efa, it's 1/6 of an efa. Upliga de Shmuel, this argues on Shmuel. Diamar Shmuel, because Shmuel says ashisha garba de chamra. He says that ashisha is not like a cake, but rather, which is 1/6 of an ephah, which is the size of the cake. Rather, he says it's a garba of wine. It's an ephah of wine. It's like a jug of wine. Techsiv, like the pasuk says, v'ohave ashisha anovim. Those who love the ashisha anovim, again, referring to these jugs of wine. Gemara continues with a brisa. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a brisa, in ofen pas ava bepesach. You're not allowed to bake a thicker kind of bread on Pesach. Divrei Beis Shammai, that's the opinion of Beis Shammai, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph.